Arizona basketball picks a very interesting time to play one of its worst, maybe least inspiring games of the season.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Here we are. We're talking Arizona USC and the aftermath of what happened at the in SC. Now listen, big picture, Arizona is still likely to get a 2 seed out west, so that is good. And is there really that much of a difference between a 1 and a 2 seed? No, not really. So there is that. But this was still a very frustrating performance for a variety of reasons. First, the effort was just not there. Arizona had already locked up the Pac-12 championship. I get all that. But this is a team that's also struggled with consistency pretty much all season. And struggling with consistency, again, has been an issue for this Arizona Wildcat team. And it showed. USC is a talented team. There's no reason that Arizona should have lost to, there's no reason that Arizona shouldn't have taken USC seriously. Isaiah Collier is going to be a top 10 pick. Everybody knows how good Boogie Ellis can be. Again, it's just a pretty talented team across the board. There's absolutely no reason for why Arizona struggled in the manner in which they did. Now, a big part of it too was that the seniors, Umar Ballo, leader of men, and Keyshawn Johnson, they came to play. They were very, very good. But other than that, Caleb Love was terrible. There's really no other way around it. Caleb Love's going to be the conference player of the year, but Caleb Love was not good. 1 of 10, 5 turnovers, just kind of looked disinterested. And honestly, that one surprised me a little bit because this is a guy I think also that was kind of playing for some All-American honors. Now, again, he still is. I'm not saying that he isn't, but, frustrating, I think, to put it mildly. Pelle Larsson also, some of the bad dribbling Pelle came back as well. Not a huge fan of that. And then Arizona also had a massive, massive problem as far as just being able to sustain anything. Whenever Arizona would get a 4-0 run, they would give up a wide open 3 to Kobe Johnson, or just on and on down the line. But again, I believe if you look at this game from beginning to end, I believe that this is probably Arizona's worst performance of the season. And again, I don't really know that there's any way that you can really argue that. A big problem for this Wildcats squad, honestly, was that you have a team in Arizona that, listen, they have a high margin for error. There's no doubt about it. But they also now have a kind of a frustrating pattern of losing to bad teams. You lose to Oregon State, you lose to Stanford. Obviously, Washington State's not bad, but this is a game that I thought Arizona should win, especially going in because you knew that Tennessee had already lost, and you kind of had your ability to hopefully get that 1 seed. That's not going to be the case. Again, your goals are still intact. But Arizona was just out hustled, and I think that's disappointing. If you're an Arizona fan, this is not what you expected. You thought you wanted this team to be ready to go right now, and they just weren't. And Tommy Lloyd talked about it on the postgame that he has high hopes for this team and what they can do. Obviously, that is really, really good. But I don't know, just watching the lack of effort, watching the lack of any form of urgency was frustrating. And I think that if you're Arizona, you probably think that you should do a little bit more. Now, big picture, this is still a really, really good Arizona basketball team. Keep in mind, this is a squad that is going to it's going to be a top 2 seed, and they can definitely win it all. We've seen them when they are playing at their best. That, you've got seniors, you've got depth across the board. But I think that's also what's kind of frustrating about it is we've seen Arizona, we've seen how good they can be. And then you come out and you drop an egg like this. It's just it was a dispiriting effort. How about that? That is the best way that I could put it. Arizona. So maybe this does light a little bit of a fire under them. Hopefully it does, because Arizona has obviously, under Tommy Lloyd, Arizona has struggled in the NCAA tournament. There's really no other way around that. Arizona struggled. And honestly, not only have they struggled, they've been kind of pushed around. Hopefully this is something where you are able to get a little bit of a tougher look. And if you're able to get a little bit of a tougher look because of that, then so be it. But like we keep talking about, nobody is going to remember this game 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. This team is going to be judged solely on what they do during the NCAA tournament. And that's obviously a good thing. But it's also something too with Lloyd where you're like, all right, well, you got to see it. Now, moving on, you're going to probably get USC in the first round of the second round of the Pac-12 tournament. The seeds have obviously come out. USC has USC is playing Washington in the first round, and USC should beat Washington. USC is like I said, USC has probably been one of the more underperforming teams maybe in the entire country. I thought it was going to be a loaded roster. Well, it is a loaded roster, but I thought they were going to be really, really good. They have not been really, really good. They have been really, really bad actually this entire year. And you watch them and you're like, not quite sure why that has been the case, because it shouldn't be the case. Now with Arizona, there's some other aspects in play too. You get to play another team. You get to play, a team that already beat you. Arizona in rematch games this year hasn't been great. Obviously, you lost to Washington State, and then you had the game against Stanford where, Arizona was able to win, but didn't look very good in that game, especially early on. So it'll be a nice little test, and it'll be a test against some talented teams. Then after that, assuming you win, you get Oregon. Oregon's talented, but they're not very good. Not exactly sure what the deal is there. I am a little bit bummed, though, about the fact that Arizona is not going to get Washington State and Stanford. I was really hoping for a matchup with both of those teams, mainly because they're both good and they provide different problems for Arizona in different realms. And I think that's something that you were hoping for. But I do expect Arizona, and we're going to talk about this more tomorrow, I do expect Arizona to take care of business, though, in the Pac-12 tournament. I think the best thing that could have happened for Arizona as far as winning the Pac-12 tournament was losing to USC. Mainly because this is a loss that I think it's difficult to, difficult not to take seriously, especially in the locker room. I am more than okay with the fact that Arizona is probably going to win the Pac-12 tournament now because of this. And if you win the Pac-12 tournament, nobody cares about this. But again, kind of a frustrating loss. And we're going to continue to talk a little bit about the mentality of this team. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Now, talking a little bit now about the mentality of this squad. You just kind of wonder, where's the killer mentality at? Because you always hear this, and listen, Houston obviously destroyed Kansas. They took the soul from Kansas. I don't necessarily buy into that argument where people say, oh, well, Houston would never have a loss like this. Well, that doesn't mean anything if Houston plays Arizona. But there is something to a team that always brings it game in and game out. And Arizona has had struggles with that all season, bringing it game in and game out. And I think that's something that's got to be that's something that is a little bit concerning for Arizona fans. Is being able to bring it game in and game out. And if you can bring it like that, then Arizona's going to be fine. They obviously weren't. Moving on then, the Pac-12 tournament then is going to be your last real take. Now, listen, if Arizona wins the Pac-12 tournament, you have a regular season where you won against USC. Not only did you win against you won the regular season Pac-12 tournament and regular season, and you won the Pac-12 postseason tournament, you'd have a clean sweep. But it's still, I think, just a matter of Arizona fans are scarred. Let's be honest here. Arizona has not been to the Final Four in over 20 years. And I think what's frustrating for Arizona fans is that they've been a top 10 program during that time. You've got 03, 05, and then you got three Sean Miller teams that were right there that barely lost. I think the average margin of victory is something like 2.5, or margin of defeat is something like 2.5 points. That is something where I think you're a little bit frustrated if you're Arizona, because it's not like you've been out in the wilderness. It's not like this is Georgetown where you just haven't been good. You've been really good. You've been knocking on the door. You just haven't been able to get there. And that's something that I think Arizona fans are certainly very frustrated by. So we'll find out exactly, what this means. But then going back to the game, there were some of the normal bugaboos that bite the team, just careless turnovers. Listen, with Tommy Lloyd's teams, there's going to be times when he plays there's going to be some times where he, there's going to be more turnovers. Arizona plays a more up-tempo style of play. And not only does Arizona play a little bit more up-tempo style of play, they're going to turn the ball over. But it's the careless turnovers that I think really frustrate people, where it's like, why are you turning the ball over left and right when you're not even really being forced? I mean, Caleb Love, Pelle Larsson had some plays where it literally looked like they just gave the ball to USC. That can't happen. That to me is just being careless. And if you're careless, then things can come back and bite you. And I think that's where, if you're an Arizona fan, you're a little bit concerned, because it didn't feel like Arizona's head was really in the game. And honestly, when you look around college basketball, UConn's going to be a number 1 seed. Houston's a lock to be a number 1 seed. Guess what? They still brought it. Now, you could say that, they still had some maybe more to play for. I get all that, but they still brought it. You want Arizona to be in that same mindset, especially too, because it's a senior-laden roster. That's the other thing that's frustrating about this is Keyshawn Johnson, 5th-year senior, and definitely not blaming Keyshawn. Keyshawn played really, really well. Umar Ballo, leader of men, senior. Pelle Larsson, senior. Caleb Love, senior. I can keep going. There's only a couple of, players that haven't played that Arizona relies on, and KJ Lewis, and he's a dude that comes off the bench. So I think it's just the self-policing of the team, I think, needs to be a little bit better. And I think with Tommy Lloyd, that's got to be also the case as well, is that you got to demand some more of these players. Now, it did crack me up in the post game. A lot of people were asking, they're saying, why doesn't Tommy Lloyd, I've never seen him just light into a player. Well, then you're not watching, because he's literally lit into Kylan Boswell 2 or 3 times. And honestly, the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to destroy your team's confidence right before the postseason is about to hit. Now, granted, there's a little bit of a difference between going all in and being like, all right, we stink. What are we doing here type thing. And also saying, all right, guys, we got to take this a little bit more seriously. This is something that we've got to take ownership of, because listen, we're not good enough to just sleepwalk. I mean, this isn't 0-1 Arizona where you had 5 of the best players in the country at every single position. It's a good team. It's not that team. It doesn't have that kind of margin for error. And by the second round, you want to be in good habits. Listen, I would be absolutely shocked if this team lost in the first round. That is not going to happen. But come the second round, you're going to start facing really good teams. You're going to start facing teams, I don't know, for example, like, just use an example from years past, like TCU or something that's big and physical and has good athletes. You got to be ready for those games. Not only do you have to be ready for those games, you got to be fully prepared, because these teams are going to absolutely bring it. That's their Super Bowl. And again, Arizona has had games where they've just laid eggs, and you can't have that continue to be the case if you're the University of Arizona. And not only can you not have that be the case, the season starts now. I mean, let's be honest here, and I'm going to keep going back to this. Tommy Lloyd, this team's going to be judged by what they do in the NCAA tournament. If we're 2 weeks from now talking about possibly getting ready for a Final Four, nobody cares about this game. But if Arizona was getting bounced early, then it's just more of a, we should have learned that. But big picture also, the sky is not falling. This is still a top 10 team. It's still one of the teams that has a chance to win the national championship. But there are performances like this are very, very frustrating. And fans have a right to be annoyed by it. And I think Tommy Lloyd should be annoyed by it as well, because, like I said, it wasn't that the team didn't necessarily play. It's that they didn't bring it. And I think that's what's very frustrating about it, is that if Arizona brings it against USC, Arizona probably wins. Give you an example. If Arizona lost to UCLA, or the Pac-12 championship was still very much in the balance, I think Arizona beats SC. So that to me also is where it's like, all right, that's kind of frustrating that we're not actually doing what we should be doing here, because we know that if Arizona was playing for more, they would probably win that, and that would be the case. But either way. Now, tomorrow we're going to talk about, moving on, what this exactly means for the U of A, and start breaking down some Pac-12 tournament action, because that is here, my friends. It is right around the corner. It's going to be great. Looking forward to being up there. I hope everybody else can make it up there as well, because it's going to be the last year, and it's going to be exciting to see exactly how this all unfolds. But as always, kind of a frustrating loss for Arizona. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow.